but I also do a lot of things around the house. I'm not a plumber, but I can sure fix my plumbing. I'm not a mechanic, but I can sure well fix our lawnmower. So I wear many hats at my house. This little document, the Constitution, it's a very simple document. You got yours from the Heritage Foundation. It's easy to read. It was designed that way for a purpose. When you look at the individuals that we currently have in Congress, they're not rocket scientists. They're easily no smarter than you and I. What we need up there are good, hard-working Americans that understand what's going on here in the 2nd District. We need people that will represent you and your concerns and your family and to share your values. Ladies and gentlemen, I share those values. I grew up with those values. Those are the values I live each and every day.
Thank you. Yes, you do. Ms.
To the rebuttal.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about rocket science, and I'm not trying to insult anyone. What I am saying is day in and day out, as these men have run a funeral business and flown a plane, I have studied the law. I would not presume to try to land David's plane, and I would be foolish to tell him I know as much about it as he does. I believe, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the only reason I'm in this race, I believe that we are in the fight of our lives as it comes to the laws and the Constitution of this United States. And we better send someone who is equipped, not just passionate, not just who's read it, not just who thinks it's simple, because I've studied it for 30 years and I still study it. It is the founding document of our country. Without this document, we cease to exist. That's why I'm in this lawsuit, not to be in this lawsuit. That's why I'm in this race, not to be critical, but to point out what's true and what's accurate. I think we're in the fight of our lives.
Thank you, all three. And thanks to my timekeeper for keeping up with it. We'll let it reset to 2 minutes here. The next question, Mr. Scholl will lead off. We will more than likely have extra time on this question. What is your position on government spending? I'm not done. What is your feeling on the size of government? On the possibility of tax cuts or the upcoming, perhaps, tax cuts disappearing? Also, your position on industry bailouts? And should every bill passed in Congress be pay-as-you-go? In other words, it should show how it will be funded. As I say, we'll start with 2 minutes for each of you. Mr. Scholl, you're first.
Good question. I think right now, that's what brought you folks here tonight. In addition to your love of country, you're watching the huge deficit that we're seeing out of Washington. Just goes over $13.2 trillion. And we see where government is going with this. They've gotten too big. Their budget's gotten bloated. And now they're talking about an additional 12 tax increases coming in January. The average family is going to see their taxes go up anywhere from $2,500 to $4,500 for next year. And that's going to be a crippler. And that's not the way to grow this economy. But what the government's not doing is getting their spending under control. We're looking at Obama's budgets between now and 2020. He wants to grow them with about $1 trillion deficit each year. He's promising us a $20 trillion deficit by the time 2020 rolls around, and they've got no solutions. I don't know who of you in here have had a chance to look at the Ryan roadmap, and it's a pretty good plan put forth by Representative Ryan out of Wisconsin. He's a good cheesehead boy, but and a Packer fan, but he's got a great plan, and he lays out all the budget constraints as we go forward, and he does it in a very methodical manner. He protects all the entitlement programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. If you're 55 or older, those programs won't change. If you're 55 or younger, then he's going to let you buy into the system and put some of the money away in your own name and also provide for your own health care going forward. He's making it more of a consumer-based solution. So it protects you if you're already retired, and as you grow older and you're coming into the system, there's still going to be something there for you. But more importantly, he's got a sound plan to get this country back on stable footing financially. Get us back to where we have no debt and start paying down the national, have no deficit and pay down the national debt. So that's a good roadmap going forward.
Thank you. Ms. Olshner.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the second part of that question. I know it was tax cuts and then...
your position on government spending, the size of government, tax cuts, and the repeal of the Bush tax cuts, industry bailouts, and should every bill passed in Congress indicate how it will be funded?
Yes, every bill we should pay as you go. As to government spending, it's out of control. As to the tax cuts, we need to have the capital gains be reduced or cut completely. I would like to see capital gains suspended for 2 years to stimulate the economy, and then look at doing away with capital gains completely. But what we really have on our budget is the main problem in our budget is our entitlements. It is 65% of our budget. It grows on autopilot. It's automatically increased every year. By the year 2050, we will not have a dime or dollar to go to anything else because of the entitlements. Now, the Representative Ryan does have a very good plan, but I do not think that plan does not include any of y'all in this room having your Medicare or Social Security or Medicaid, any of those provisions cut, but that we've got to look at this, and to try to do anything else without reforming this one part of the budget makes it impossible for us to get our budget back on track. I think, I'm sure there's no one in here who is for the industry bailout, I'm assuming, and I'm against that as well. I don't think that has helped us at all. Thank you.
And Mr. Sutherland.
But as far as the government spending, since World War II, government spending has always run about 18 to 20% of our GDP. This year, under the Obama administration, that's going to push up between 24 and 25%. Congressman Paul Ryan is a brilliant individual. He is also trying to get a bill sponsored that would put a cap that for 60 years that average of 18 to 20% of government spending to GDP has worked. And so what he is proposing doing is putting a cap on 20%. I think that's good. I think government needs to have some restrictions. I know that we have restrictions in our family budgets and in our company budgets. We cannot spend more money than we have. That's common sense. That's a self-evident truth that this current administration can't understand. I think as far as the size of government, it's like that raging river. It is now overflowing its banks. It is now in your living rooms and in your lives, and it needs to be pushed back. I think that it requires business people who sign the fronts of checks and not just the backs of checks, to go to Washington, D.C. and practice up there what we are having to practice in the United States in small towns all across this country. As far as the tax cuts, as many of you know, the Bush tax cuts are set to expire. And one that is very sinister to me is the death tax, the estate tax. Because what that tax is going to do is it is going to make families that have family businesses and family farms, after $1 million exemption, they're going to have to pay the federal government 9 months after the death of its patriarch 55% of the value of that business or that family farm, and then pay capital gains tax on the 45%. That will put family-owned businesses out of business. That is a detraction for growth, and I just think that's flat out wrong and unconstitutional. Government bailouts, I have to tell you, our companies, we haven't received a single bailout. Government should not be in the business of picking and choosing winners and losers. If you can deliver value to your customers should be able to vote for you, and you win based on the value you deliver. If you don't deliver value, you die.
Thank you. Why don't we each take an extra minute to either issue rebuttals or to make further clarifications on your statements. We'll start with Mr. Scholl.
Okay, just to address a few items that I didn't talk about. Obviously, doing away with the tax cuts that we have from 2001, and they weren't tax cuts, they were rebates on money we gave the government. So we need to make sure that those 2001 and 2003 taxes that we had in there stay the same, and let's try to reduce them as much as possible. As far as PAYGO is concerned, it'd be great if the entire budget, PAYGO applied to that. But PAYGO, the way they have it in the program right now, affects such a small portion of the spending, it's a joke. But PAYGO should apply to everything that the government writes. If they come out with a bill and they don't have a way to pay it, then it doesn't get put into law. So we've got to force government. You know, the guy that designed Quicken, he's an Air Force Academy graduate. We need that guy to write a Quicken program for the government so that you and I can log